So what we start with this today is basically that how exactly we start working with SQL. Okay. Now we have learned what is MySQL. We have learned what is database, what are database management system softwares. We have done all that. Now today we start learning with something called as structured query language or SQL. Okay. Now till now I was talking about MySQL and now I shifted to something called as SQL. Please mind the difference because this has been asked in the exams where the children got a little confused because this was something which we discussed maybe at the beginning of the session and then we didn't refer to that concept again. What happens is when I talk about a complete package which includes a lot of things, the entire database management, that is basically my DBMS, or that's basically my DBMS software or RDBMS software as we call them. And that is your SQL, MySQL or Oracle or MS Excel. So they are complete package, which is my uh, relational database management system software. Okay. But this SQL is nothing but this is a globally accepted language which I am using to access with my database, and the same language is being used when whether I'm accessing the data through Oracle databases or through MySQL databases or through Excel databases or through any other DBMS for that matter. That's the best part about this, that SQL, we also pronounce it as SQL at times. If you are pronouncing it as the whole word, so you use a SQL, otherwise we say SQL. It's basically a query language. The purpose of that entire storage, what I'm doing through my database softwares, is that whenever I need some information, I should be able to extract based on my requirement. So SQL performs the best possible and the most universally accepted, preferred language for this interaction. Okay, so when you try to compare, SQL or SQL becomes your language for the processing of your data, and the person who's managing that entire database environment, giving you all the features, giving you all the facilities to do the work, that's basically my entire RDBMS software, which is MySQL. Okay, so that difference you should definitely understand, that SQL is just the language which I'm using. It uses basic simple language, simple English language, and it's meant for interacting with your databases and tables and all that. Fine. So because I'm talking about this being a language where I'm using interaction, for which I'm using it for interaction. So then we kind of have learned, we will learn these SQL commands to do the interaction. And the SQL commands, before we start off, we talk about these four categories of commands which we have to understand. And basically, we focus upon DDL and DML in our class 11 syllabus. Okay, we do talk about TCL and DCL here, but then it's not something which we refer to any further during our study. We concentrate mainly on DDL and DML. Okay, so here we find that the classification of the commands goes as data definition language. So you know by the term itself that it is meant to define something, right? Meant to define something. So here I will not be using it for any kind of manipulation at times. For manipulation, for changes, I will be using DML. That's a very rough sketch of the way we remember, okay, this command must be under this category. And I'm specifically asking you to remember which command is under which category, because there are two kinds of questions which are asked in this section in your board exams, and similarly they'll be asked in your class 11th exams also. That first of all, of course, DDL, DML difference, and second could be your DDL, DML full forms, as simple as that, as half markers or one markers. But the most Typical one is that they give you a command and they ask you, please classify it. Is it a DDL command or a DML command or a TCL command or a DCL command? For like that. Though it will not be asked you for DCL and TCL as of now. But DDL and DML, yes, in 11th you can be asked. Supposedly I'm saying delete command. So delete command is a DML or a DDL. So you have to specify that the delete is a DML command. So for that, the classification of commands have to be remembered. You might initially find it that this is ridiculous to remember the commands as per the heading, that this heading has these commands. If I know the commands, then what's the need? But remembering the classification is, believe me, not difficult, because when you say data definition, okay, it refers to certain set of things. What are those? I try to create my database. That's my first step. When I start working in a database environment, I need to first create my database. What will that database comprise of? That database, as of now, what we understand, comprises of multiple tables. Like I explained last class, that if I talk about the school environment as my school database, so within that school database, I will have students master table, I will have library issue details table, I will have fee details table, I'll have teachers table, teachers salary calculation table, maybe their provident fund calculation table, right? So I break up that entire information which I need to store and use to make my system work in terms of various tables. And every table will be correlated as we did with the help of foreign key with the master table, right? So we have tables within the database. So creating the database, creating the table. Now I discussed about structure, database schema. Like I need to first mention what kind of fields or columns you want, what, how much data will you store in that, what is the width of that data, all that. So that change, while you created the table, you mentioned that. But if I want to change the structure, alter table, that's the command. Then two commands for deleting the table and deleting the database completely. Correct? So how do we remember the DDL commands? We remember it as creation, alteration, and drop. That is creation, alteration, and delete of database and tables. Okay, but when I say tables, I don't mean the table data. That is my records. Records are not touched in any case. Talking about DDL commands, they will not touch the records. So it's very simple. There are 5 commands in the DDL. So it's like defining the data, defining the basic things first. So in basic things, what do I have? Create the database, create the table, alter the structure of the table. So it's alter table, then delete both. That I do with the drop table and drop database. Okay, so creation, alteration, and drop. These 3 categories are your DDL commands. Okay, next is your DML. Now, in DML, as the name suggests, manipulation. That is, I want to change my data. So, because structure creation is create table, structure alteration is alter table, structure deletion is drop table. It's over. Nothing to do with structures anymore in my command categories. Correct? So definitely what are we left with? Records. So record insertion, record updation, record deletion, everything under manipulation. So everything related to records, you will definitely try to make records, create records and put it. That's through insert command. I want to make some changes in my record. Somebody's class change, somebody's section change, somebody's stream change, some child's address change, some child's phone number change. Update command. And the child left, so I want to delete the whole record. Delete command. So all the manipulation concerned to the data, concerned to the records, come under the category of DML. Fine. So now if you remember it that way, you will not have difficulty in remembering the commands which come under DDL and DML. Okay. Talking about TCL and DCL, I'll just briefly give you what exactly they mean. When you talk about a huge multi-user database environment, okay, Like I have a central database of students information in school at one place, and library is also accessing that, fee counter is also accessing, report card generator a person generation person is also accessing, right? That's a kind of multi-user environment. Now in a multi-user environment we need to talk about changes and undoing those changes individually, but it should reflect my main database also. So these commands come into play because when a single user is working, he works in terms of transactions, that whatever he is doing, it is doing at his end currently. When he does commit, the data goes and gets saved into my actual database. When he does rollback, the changes are reversed at his end only, so the changes are not saved. And to make those changes, I can define certain points, that please go back till this point, undo the changes till this point, or undo the changes till this point. So for that we make save points. Fine. So for this kind of a setup, we use these three commands, and they come under the category of transaction control language, TCL. Controlling your transactions. When a multi-user environment, when a single person is working with a set of things, so how do I take care of that? Okay. Now the last part, data control language. When you talk about data control language, when you understand this, you'll understand to what extent a DBS environment helps you maintain securities, maintain various things in your database environment. For example, I'm the DBA. Okay, I have this entire school setup of database to be managed, right? Now I will have a library person appointed, and he will take care of the library part, all issues and book details and everything. I'll have Pooja ma'am from reception taking care of all the admissions. I'll have Amita ma'am from fee counter taking care of all the fees. I have Geeta ma'am from account section taking care of the hostel interaction of the children in terms of their fees and their pocket money things and etc. etc. I have Geeta ma'am to take care, Geeta Bhade ma'am to take care of my report card, portal details. That also picks up the data from my student database only, central place itself. Okay. Now, who can do what? Because all this database will be accessed by even the teachers when they enter marks, isn't it? Now, who gets how much authority? Now, is supposingly I being a teacher, I try to put marks and I find that some name is missing, and I'm telling you these practical examples, real examples only. From the portal, I find a name missing. Okay. So can I just go and make a new entry into the main database and just make the changes in the table and start entering the marks myself? No, I don't have that right. Okay. So there is a person who is controlling that entire setup as to who can give, I mean, who can access how much. And that part is taken care by these two commands, grant and revoke. Grant is granting of authority to somebody, some user, and revoke is taking back that authority. Okay. So that is basically your data control language. Put a control on who can do what. Okay, in terms of these two commands, grant and revoke. But again, I repeat, your TCL and DCL as such implementation will not be done in your class 11. So we can currently concentrate upon DDL and DML only. Fine. Okay, now one more point I would like to highlight here, that your SQL commands are not case sensitive. So all the issues and all the hassles of Python gone. P capital, P small, or something went wrong with some kind of letter. There's no issue. I have put here the commands capital in capital letters just to make it look highlighted. That's the only reason. Otherwise, you can have a combination case: C capital, R small, E capital, A small. It doesn't really matter to a scale at all. You can write in running case, you can write with capital case, you can write with small case, one small, one capital, everything is possible. It doesn't really matter in terms of commands. Of course, when you're putting the data inside the data, if you put one small, one caps, one small, one caps, it will look very odd when you print it. So definitely we maintain a particular kind of a, one particular type of entry, either capitals or smalls, that's your wish. But commands are not case sensitive. Whichever way you give the command, it does not really matter to the system, to SQL at all. it is able to identify the command as it is. Okay, I think it's clear. So DDL we'll start up with and concentrate on DDL commands in the very first term along with this insert, because until I do insert, I really can't see how things are going to work out. So I've just picked up insert from the DML and put it in this category for your first term. So create database, create table, alter table, insert records into the table, drop table and drop database is part of your first term exam. Rest we do later. Okay, now here there is one more command which we will be using, rather I should say too much. We'll be using too much actually, but it's not under any of these categories, and that's called the select command. Okay, now I have not put it for some controversial reason, because certain books might say it is part of DML and certain books might say it is part of a data query language, a fifth category altogether. Fine. So that select command is basically meant for selecting the data. That is, now once your data is ready, I want to use it for my display purpose. Okay, show me the records, show me the data, names of students who are studying in class 11th, or show me the names of students with their section and class who are in science stream. So like that. So when I want to pick up my data now from my database and tables and display for my purpose, that is where I use that select commands, which is part of my data query language. When I start with select, I will talk about that. Fine. Now next, I am currently not talking about installation of MySQL. That I'll tell you how to do that separately. Currently, once your database is installed and you open the client part of that, I show you how to do it. You get something like this kind of a screen. It shows me mysql.exe.
This is command prompt, na?
Yeah,
Something
this is the
like it
command
is
prompt.
called.
Yeah. Command client. Okay. So this is the mysql.exe available here. You can see it. That's what is running. And it gives you this particular thing, type help or h, whatever. Then it also asks you for a password initially. You have to give that password, which we set when we install MySQL, root password. Okay. Because we are not working with multi-user environment, we were working with the root only. So my username by default remains root, which it doesn't ask for anything. And I go for my uh, password as whatever password you want to give, that's your wish. Okay. So if I just, okay, fine. If I just try to show it to you, see, once it is installed, in your start button here, when you say MySQL, now there are, there'll be a full folder with a lot of things, because MySQL installation talks about a lot of things actually. This is the installer. That also has picked up because I've just written MySQL. It's actually this what you have to pick to work with MySQL commands. MySQL, whatever the version you're working with, command line client. This is the latest version, but we can have an older version also. That's not a problem. It doesn't really affect much of the commands. So MySQL command 8.0 command line client. This is the option you have to choose. You'll not go for MySQL shell or workbench or nothing like that. Okay. So you click on this. This is what appears. It asks for the password directly. I think I had given password something like 1234, and I press enter. So it verifies everything and then gives you this prompt. The way in Python you had those three greater than symbols. Now here it is a MySQL prompt. That's what I've shown you here initially. Okay, after the password
Ma'am,
entry. Yeah.
ma'am, is Python a more effective language or SQL?
The purpose is completely different. Python is a complete language in which you can develop a website, in which you can develop games, in which you can develop so many things. Python is a computer language. SQL is just a language which is used in interaction to interact, not in interaction. It is used to interact with your database. The purpose is completely different. You cannot say that I can use SQL commands to develop a game. No. Because everywhere I talk of a backend, I talk of a database to store my data, whether it's a game also, I use my databases to store maybe my users' codes. So being a backend person, later on when I have to, open search, pick up data, do something with that, so I should be knowing SQL to work with. whether it's a banking application, whether it's a normal business application, backend, that is the data where actually the data is being stored, your records, that thing is being handled by SQL. So the purpose of these two things are completely different. Okay. Now, to work with MySQL, first and the foremost thing is you have to create your database. So your entire work will be stored by your database name. Under the heading of various databases. Sorry. Now, when I talk about starting to create a database, that's my first command we learn. Create database, simple, create space database, space, whatever name you want to give. Now, if that database already exists, like one day you have worked and next day you want to come and use it, and you again start writing create database and the name of the database, obviously it will say can't create that database, it already exists. As simple as that. So you want to delete that database, that's your wish. You will say drop database Sushmita. Very simple. And again recreate it. But everything within that database is finished. There is no recycle bin concept here, mind that. Whatever you delete from SQL does not go to the recycle bin. Once a deletion means a permanent deletion. Fine. So first thing, I try to create a database. If it is already existing, it will give the error. Very simple errors. The errors are also not complex here like Python. Can't create database Sushmita, database already exists. So I showed you by creating another database by some other name like CL11, class 11. Okay. And the way he responds is query okay, one row affected. And it took this many seconds to kind of do the work, something like that. Fine. So this is how you get the outputs simultaneously. So very simple, create database command is used to create what? It is used to create my database. As simple as that. Now, supposedly first day I went and I made a database and then I made tables in that and I did a lot of work and then over, finish, close. I finished my work. Now, next day, I don't want to create my database again. I want to work in that database. So anytime, even after immediate creation, you want to work with that database, you will have to open that database. That's why I see I've written here, creation and opening. Either it's create open or it's already created and you simply go and open it. Right? So open the database first before you do anything else. Otherwise, all your commands will be not acceptable if you forget to do so. Right? Now I need to open my database. If I remember the name of the database, very well and good. Like I say, use Sushmita, but I think I did not do the screenshots in this machine. So it might give me an error here. Let's see. If I give a name which doesn't exist, acha, one more point, of course. Every query in your SQL command ends with a semicolon. Complete variation from Python. Okay. When you press enter, okay, this database does not exist. So very simple, this database is not existing in this particular machine, so please create it for yourself. So I start, okay, let me create it. Create database and I do it by my own name. Fine. I forget to give a semicolon and I press enter. It gives you this kind of a thing which shows that I'm on the second line, but I'm still waiting for your instructions. Unless you terminate the command is not terminated. Okay, so the semicolon is basically used to terminate the command. A simple objective question can be asked on this: which symbol is used or what is being used to terminate an SQL command? It's the semicolon. Unless you do that, you'll keep on continuing the command. Next line, next line, next line. It will not terminate it. Okay. Now I want to do something in that database. I want to create my tables, of course. That's the second step. But before you do that, you have to open that database. So I say use and the name of the database. Use name of the database, semicolon. Database changed. Nothing reflects on the prompt, but the database is changed. Okay. Now I close. I again open my thing next day. Maybe I've done some work in my database, but currently I'm not showing you that. I again open. When I again open, I have to again come to my password. Don't forget the password. 1, 2, 3, 4. Enter. Now I don't remember. what database I created. Okay. Now I want to ask my machine, please show me the list of databases which is already available. Maybe by seeing the name, I'll remember that what was the name, what was the database I created. Okay. So at any point of time when you are not inside any particular database specifically, then in that case, I want to see the list of databases. The command goes as show databases. And it is databases minded. It's a very common mistake that even anybody can do. And we write show database. No, it's show databases. Very easy to remember in the sense that obviously I expect multiple databases to be shown, and hence we are writing show databases. Now, when you write show databases, you will find that information underscore schema, MySQL, performance underscore schema, and sys. These are by default created. I did not create them. So you can very well logically say that it is multiple databases only. Because even if you have not created any database, these four are there. They are system tables meant for some system information to be stored. Okay, so this is how it is going to be shown to you, and it shows me the list here. Okay, it was Sushmita I created, I remember. So I know the thing like this. So I have to open my database now. So I'll say use Sushmita, semicolon, enter, and my database has been changed. Okay, so we've done two commands here.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
why does it say like database changed?
Actually,
I didn't get that
yeah,
point.
basically what happens is it's, like, okay, let me explain you with this example. In Windows environment, you make folders. Everybody does that, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Now,
Yes, ma'am.
on the desktop, you made a folder. You said right click and you say new folder. Okay, the folder is created. It is showing you also actually. But are you, when you want to store something into that folder, you again want to make a subfolder into that. You again want to make a new blank document into it. So don't you have to open that folder for that matter? You have to double click, open that folder, and then go and do work in that. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
But technically, you are definitely at some place, some container, which is showing you all the other stuff which is available in that particular place. So by default, we say, even if for our machines, we say that by default, we are in the root directory. Have you people realized that? Everything is made inside the root directory by default. C drive, we write C colon backslash. What is that backslash? That backslash is the default directory in which you are placed the moment you open the drive, the moment you create a drive. Okay. Now within that root, whatever data, whatever folders you'll be making, subfolders and files or whatever it is, that will be stored there. And when you are going to a particular folder within that, so it is technically changing the path. From root, it has now gone to Sushmita folder. And it is inside Sushmita folder. So that is what it tries to show us when it says database changed. That from the root folder, now I have moved to Sushmita folder. Am I clear? Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. But you have
Yes,
to
ma'am.
remember one thing, that when you talk about Windows, you go from root to Sushmita as a folder, and within Sushmita, you create another subfolder. Within that folder, maybe programs. And within programs, I create another SQL programs and Python programs. As I say, I make folders. But in SQL environment, you are not creating sub databases. There's nothing like that. So it's like your root, which has got all these databases which I showed you, the default one and my own created. And within database, you can only create tables. You cannot create other set of databases within a particular database. So do remember that. Database cannot contain databases. That's a false statement. Okay. So that's what this slide shows you and tells you. Database would contain tables to store the data in the form of rows and columns. It can be multiple tables. If somebody is noting down, please note down. A database cannot contain other databases, but it can contain more than one tables. And what will the table contain? Rows and columns of data, which we have seen earlier also, the kind of format it will be storing the data. Okay. Now, before creating the tables and storing the data into it, we have to know that what kind of data does SQL support and how to handle that. Now, here the confusion rises because in Python you have learnt about int, float, string. 3 types of data in Python you've learned, right? String can be in single quote, double quote. Thankfully, that applies in SQL also. But here I don't call the string type to be a string. I call it a char or a varchar data type. This var is basically variable character or character data type. Okay. If you talk about integer data type in Python, you have int or integer or big int as my data types in SQL to store the SQL data. For date, I have got a specific data type here, date. In Python, we handle dates like string only. And for float, I have float as well as decimal in SQL. So somewhat similar, somewhat different, right? But in SQL also, whenever I define that structure of the table, database schema, when I define, I have to tell him that this is my field name and this is the type of data it will store. It will be either character, so character or varchar, when I say it can accept any character of the keyboard. Dash also, two also, a also, comma also, space also, everything. So it's just like your string data. It can contain everything and anything. Okay. There's a difference between char and varchar. I'll come to that later. As of now, you understand string ka replacement. What you have in SQL is char and varchar. Okay. For float, you have decimal. Of course, it accepts data with decimal point. And when you define that decimal data type for a particular field, for a particular column, we mentioned two arguments to it, two values to it. First value and second value. I've just termed them as P and S here. First value comma second value. First value indicates the total size. I'll explain that with an example also. Total size of the number. So if it's, I'm saying 7 digits can be accepted, I specify that in the place of P. So that means 7 digits will be inclusive of the numbers or the digits before decimal and after decimal mila ke. Total can be 7. And S says number of digits which you can have at the right side of the decimal point. So if I'm saying 7 comma 2, that means 2 digits in the decimal part and 7 minus 2, 5 digits in the integer part. That is the maximum digit strength what your this particular data can accept. The data which I'm creating for my case. Otherwise, it takes quite a huge amount of data. You really don't have to bother about 10, 20, 30, it takes that. But you will use it according to your need. Similarly, int and big int is there to store your integer also. I've just kind of not written it. Integer, integer.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
ma'am, can you please explain about decimal thing, decimal data type?
Yeah. I will just explain this thing, but I think it will be a little too much if I take up the example now. It's already 58. So just let me pick up, as of now that you remember that for string data type, what is available, for float, what is available, for int, what is available, for date, what is available. Okay. I'll take up the example in the next class. Fine. So decimal data type or float data type is meant for numbers with decimal point. In decimal, when I specify, I need to specify him the size. Now for size, I have to mention him how many digits are you allowing me in total, and out of that, how many are you allowing me after decimal point. Just a second. Kavita! Kavita! Hello. Sorry. So how much is available before decimal and how much is available after decimal can be done by this. I'll take up the example in the next class. Int is having a particular set of size, the number of digits you can store here. It is not more than 9. So if I have to store a 10-digit mobile number of some person, I will have to go for big int. And it's very easy to remember big int for bigger integers, as simple as that. Okay. For smaller integers, it's int. For bigger integers, bigger means 10 digit and more, then it is big int. And date is for storing dates like date of issue, date of submission, date of birth. I want to store for somebody. Okay, like these, when I want to store proper dates, I use the date data type. But we have to specifically remember the format for date here. That is very important. Y. So it's the year first in 4 digits, dash dash dd. This is something which we have to remember, and dates are also handled as your uh, string value. So that is why internally when you are storing it, when you are storing the data, don't forget to put the quotes. So I'm putting it here so that it remains in your mind that for string, that is your char and varchar data, it is quotes. Double or single both works. So there's no confusion when you do it in Python or you do it in SQL. For dates, it quotes. It needs quotes, but for decimal and float, it is not required. Okay. There is a time data type also. I'm not talking about it because we really don't use that much storing the time specification, but there is a time data type also. Fine. So that is how we are understanding this. Then when next class we start by creating the table where we specify the column name and the type of the data with the width. I'll take up the confusion which you're having for your decimal. Okay. So that is what